A very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on a Friday morning. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you've all had a great week. Looking forward to the weekend. Looking forward to the England game. Let's see if we can get through into the next stage of the Euros 2024, shall we? What am I going to talk about today? Well, before I do, if you're new to the channel, please do hit that like button that's down there somewhere. Please do become a subscriber of the channel. It costs you nothing. All the content is free. It'd be great if you can become a subscriber. And if you want to know when the next show is on, you've got to hit that bell notification that's down there as well to give you an alert as to when the next show is coming up. So what am I going to talk about today? Well, it's all about Tim Steidten. I've done several shows about Steidten over the past year or so, but whilst the transfer window is in full bloom, I thought I'd sort of pay another visit about what Steidten is doing, what his plans are, what sense of direction we're going to go under with Tim Steidten in this transfer window. Look, the window, it's in its third week now, and in a few days' time, the international window will also open. We've had two signings already with Luis Guilherme and now Wes Foderingham. But I think a few fans were maybe expecting just that little bit more exciting transfer activity with perhaps another one or two Steidten pearl diving finds. Many fans might correctly argue that as talented as Guilherme is said to be, he wasn't necessarily a key target in this transfer window. He's a right-sided, left-footed player, and we would argue that we got quite a few of those in the squad already. And as necessary as it is to get a third keeper, the experience Wes Foderingham hasn't really brought the excitement of a transfer window signing that I guess we would normally expect. So Steidten has uncovered one pearl, but by all accounts, it could turn out to be a very good one, given that Guilherme is classed as one of the top 20 young up-and-coming players of 2024. But one could hardly call Foderingham a pearl find, can they? And we're also pursuing the signing of Max Kilman. And it's been suggested that West Ham are going in with a third and final offer, which would amount to something like £35 million overall. I understand that this offer would entail add-ons or even a cash plus player deal to bring it up to that amount. But not many West Ham fans are even enamoured with that approach for Kilman. And many suggest that we should be focusing our efforts on other central defenders, younger and cheaper. The issue is kind of exacerbated by constantly being told that we're a little short of transfer funds in this summer window, with the suggestion that we've got nowhere near £100 million as a base transfer kitty and is likely to be closer to something like 60 million. So if it is 60 million and then we spend 30 million or so on Kilman, that's not going to leave us a lot to buy other players. Hence the need to start looking at selling some of our current squad in order to boost that transfer kitty. Now, in addition to the don't we have a sizable transfer kitty story, there have been some awful conflicting West Ham transfer stories breaking over the past few weeks, which has created a bit of confusion and, dare I say, a bit of unrest among some fans, especially when we hear stories like being linked to Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Wilfried Zaha, Raheem Sterling, Callum Wilson. You know, a lot of these players are either very injury prone or coming to the end of their careers. And as usual, we're being quoted not just a few £1 million to buy them, but big fees, you know, big salaries, big transfer fees, etc., which kind of makes it a little bit like, what's going on? Now, obviously, we shouldn't really believe all the stories that are out there, but the recent links are a far cry to some of the players that we were being linked to when Steidten was out in Brazil to sign Guilherme. Hence my saying at the start, perhaps we thought Steidten may have uncovered one or two other pearls than just the Guilherme one so far. So what direction is Steidten taking us with transfers this summer? Foderingham and Kilman do not seem to be the type of transfer activities that Steidten would normally be associated with. Could it be that just like David Moyes used to do, that Lopetegui is having too much of a say in who he wants to sign this summer? But surely this should be a working partnership, a working relationship. So it shouldn't come as any surprise if Lopetegui did suggest one or two players that he wants at the club. But back to Steidten. Look, we've been given a glimpse, haven't we? We've been given a glimpse of the future through the signing of teenager Luis Guilherme. And I dare say we need to trust Tim Steidten to do the job that he's been set out to do. And we also, if we want more evidence, more proof of his capabilities, we should look at his past when he worked for Werder Bremen and Leverkusen to get a bigger insight, a much deeper insight of his transfer capabilities. And there's lots of evidence to suggest that he truly is good at uncovering hidden gems. So let's look at Werder Bremen to start with, and some of the signings that he brought there during his time at the club. He's credited with the signing of Serge Gnabry when the player was just 21 years of age. He brought him in for something like 5 million euros. We know what Gnabry's done. He's gone on to play for Bayern Munich, as well as becoming a German international with over 40 appearances to date for his national club. And then there's the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, who he brought in at the age of 21 on loan from Chelsea at the time. Gave the player that platform, didn't it, to truly show his abilities, his capabilities. You know, he scored 10 goals and assisted with 10 in that season he was on loan. And he was kind of not languishing at Chelsea, but wasn't really getting as much game time as he wanted. Then we've got Thomas Delaney, kind of looking at something a little bit different. He was at FC Copenhagen, central midfielder. He brought him in for just 2 million euros. He spent 6 months at the club before being sold to Borussia Dortmund for 20 million euros. And then another complete contrast in kind of transfers is the player Davy Klaassen, who he brought from Everton for 13.5 million euros, who went on to do really well at Werder Bremen. He did even better when he moved to Ajax and now plays for Inter Milan. So these 4 signings give you a kind of an insight, a perfect summation of the type of players that Steidten can bring to a side. Promising youngsters for reasonable fees, such as Gnabry and Kevin De Bruyne. Dominant players in leagues that are often overlooked, as in the example of Delaney. And undervalued or out-of-form players that still have plenty to prove, as in the case of Klaassen. And it was this remarkable eye for a deal, combined with his general stewardship of Werder Bremen throughout the 11 years that he was there, and his willingness to integrate youngsters into the first team, that saw Bayer Leverkusen come calling for his signature. And it's here that he made an even bigger name for himself. Because even here, he recruited some superb talent. First of all, winger Moussa Diaby. Sorry, I'll go back on that. Winger Moussa Diaby, who he signed from PSG for a fee of 15 million euros. And he was only just turning 20 at the time when the deal was done. Diaby was phenomenal for Leverkusen. 172 appearances, 49 goals, 48 assists. 4 years on, he was sold to Aston Villa for 55 million euros, a profit of 40 million euros. And then, of course, there's centre-back Edmund Tapsoba, who he bought from Portuguese club Vitória for 20 million euros. And he's become a linchpin for the German club with 183 appearances to date. And then you've got to include Jeremy Frimpong, who he bought from Celtic for a mere 11 million euros. And now he's a full Netherlands international, and he's worth something like around about 50 million euros. And others include the signing of, oops, sorry about that. Let me go back again. Others include the signing of central defender Piero Hincapié, who at the age of 19 came from Argentine club Atletico Teleres for a mere 6.35 million euros, who's now an Ecuadorian international and worth circa 40 million euros. And you already saw a glimpse of him. A final one is one of the hottest attacking players around at the moment, German international Florian Wirtz, who arrived from FC Cologne at the age of 16 for a mere 200,000 euros. He spent 6 months in the Leverkusen academy, then made his senior debut at the age of 17. He's now a full German international and rumoured to be worth something like 130 million euros. So all of these successful signings Steiden's commitment to a data-driven recruitment methodology that allows his team to identify talented players in leagues that clubs may not traditionally scout. And it demonstrates that Steidten will scour the markets across the world in order to find the players that he believes will fit into the model or the project that he wants to build. Steiden's influence of transfer activity at West Ham started whilst David Moyes was still there. If you remember, the scouting network was expanded. It was taking shape with the arrival of his brother, Moritz Steidten, and the data-driven analyst, Max Hahn. Steidten trusts data so much that the signing of Hincapi, for example, encapsulates that to a T. Despite just making 14 appearances at Atletico Teleres, Hincapi's stats were so eye-catching. Steidten got the player signed for Leverkusen before they even met the player or the player's agents in person. It was all decided purely on analysis. So that's why I find it hard to believe the rumours linking us to the likes of Callum Wilson and players of that sort of ilk. I think we may get a few surprise signings this summer. I don't think we were going to get too many, if any at all, marquee signings for big money. I trust what Steidten can bring, and we have to be patient to see what he delivers. We do not have to spend big to create a successful team. For all the players that we've been linked to, I think we should be paying special attention to at least half a dozen players that I've spoken about over the past few days. For example, Juan Miranda, the left back who will soon be a free agent from Real Betis. His contract ends at the end of June. Jadon Philogene, the left winger from Hull City, who I believe we've made further inquiries about. Adam Klozek, the striker for Leverkusen, who obviously we know much about. We were interested in him before. Now, Klozek, you know, I know Leverkusen are playing in the Champions League, but he's not got a lot of game time, not got a lot of starts for Leverkusen. And possibly Matthias Suhl, the right-sided attacking player who signed for Juventus, was out on loan last season. And Nuan Perez, the Udinese centre-back, as well as Jake Greaves, the Hull centre-back. Now, look, I'm not saying we're going to definitely get all of these players, but it's interesting that every one of these players play in positions that we believe we need strengthening in. So centre-backs, left back, left-sided attacking players, and so on. A striker as well. And that's why it excites me when I hear stories like these ones. I get more excited and more interested in them because I think they're the sort of players that Tim Steidten is very likely to be pursuing, which tells me that he's absolutely on course to bring us what we need in this summer transfer window.